so good to see everybody. I can't believe how long it's been since I've seen so many friendly faces, and I do miss our dinners, so we don't want to substitute this for dinners when we're all post-COVID. So the topic that Carter and Carrie asked me to sort of chat about is sort of marketing in this post-COVID world, getting ready for next year. What are the things we ought to be thinking about? So I wanted to share some things that have been going on in our firm. We have 80 chief marketing officers that now work for us. So Blaine, we've grown a long way since you were with us. And share some things that we're seeing in the mid-market, and really start out with a fun example around how important mindset is, and then talk about, you can go to the agenda, talk about what's forever changed, and then a little bit of perspective. I think we could have a good discussion later on the buyer's journey, and I'll share some best practices that we're deploying in the field. With 80 ex-Fortune 1000 CMOs, we've had a lot of sharing and a lot of experience in terms of what's working for these companies and what's not. So on the next slide, you'll see two chefs from sort of date night restaurants. And one has a fixed mindset and says, you know what? I'm just gonna hunker down. I'm gonna do takeout meals, and this COVID thing's gonna fly by, and life is going to be good again. And the next chef says, wow, man, we need to figure this out. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and understand how my buyers' needs have changed. And so what he does is he goes out and he interviews his patrons, he gets their perspective. They're not interested in his fancy date night meals anymore. Mom and dad have been homeschooling the kids all day, and they want family style meals. So he created a family style menu. He created an email program, asked for referrals, and he started booking all of his meals 1 week out. And guess what happened? We had one chef whose business went like this, and another chef whose business just sort of cratered and, started to go flat and deflate. So there's really this notion that certain things have changed forever, and we need to really think about that. And so the first thing I try to just say is, like, just go inside your own little world and think about what has changed forever. Well, I got Winston. For 20 years, I've wanted a dog. My husband would never let me get a dog because I was always on the road. Well, I haven't been on the road since March 13th when I was in Alaska and Dallas. And so now I need vet services. I have all this stuff I need. And there are habits that are going to remain even when there is a vaccine. And it's really important, I think, to figure out what are those lingering effects that consumers and businesses are going to be dealing with. So for me, I probably won't go to a gym again. And I went to the gym a lot. I'm all organized online. My mom won't go to a grocery store likely because she found this new way of buying her groceries off her iPad. And she just thinks it's the bomb's end because they get delivered, they get taken up to her apartment. So this is something I think businesses have not spent enough time on. What has changed forever? And, look, there's no surprise here, right? This is a McKinsey study that talks about B2B buyer preference. And you can see that in the various phases of how people research, evaluate, and order their solution, there's been this growing trend towards being able to want to do this online yourself. And what's happened is this trend has been going along, and it went up, 200 and something % in the evaluation stage where they want to evaluate online. But what we're seeing now on the next slide is that this is really accelerated 2 times with COVID. So this is a follow-up McKinsey study with B2B decision makers done in April, so in the middle of COVID. And they said for the period before COVID, what method was more important to your customers? And it was 50-50, whether it was traditional or digital enabled sales transactions. In COVID, it's 2 times. So if you are not figuring out 2 things, one of 2 things that changed, either how your buyers want to buy or how their needs have changed. So that's sort of the stage setter for this whole evolution that's only accelerated in terms of how COVID is changing sales and marketing. Marketing used to really be top of funnel. Now we really have to go down and even do some of the sales. I say your website is your first sales call. And we have to start thinking about it. The buyer's journey has all of these digital implications, and I sort of went through and highlighted in blue all of the things that are now digital. And so if you're not thinking through how this is going to change in your business next year, and I would also say not only in terms of how you're thinking it's going to change, but what is going on with your competitors. Because there are ways now to, and I'm going to take you through a real example of how you start to understand your competitors digitally. And look, there's no big surprise. This all starts with what are the right market insights that drive the right strategy, that drive the right execution. So if you want to have really great execution in 2021, it's going to be because you've adjusted your strategy to understand your markets, your offering, and how you're going to position them against competitors. Because as all this is happening, all of your competitors are making moves. So you really have to think about, gosh, what are they doing? How are they pivoting? How are they changing their customer acquisition strategies? How are they positioning themselves? And all of that understanding and great execution is going to be built on what's the right insight about your customer, your company, and your competitor. And none of this is new. These are the things we've been talking about for years. It's a market-based framework for growing businesses. And if you think about your first sales call, I said before, it's really your website. We know, and we just need to remember this, that 38% of people stop browsing if it's not an attractive website, which I'm sure none of you have. 40% leave if loading is 3 seconds. For goodness sakes, use website.grader.com and test your websites. There are so many slow websites that if you just fix those little things, people will judge your credibility from your website and base their impression on design. None of that's new to you, but good reminders about how important your digital communication strategy is and how it really has to go deeper. And, as Adam points out, mobile, if you are not delivering a top drawer mobile experience now, as you'll see on website.grader.com, Google will penalize you. So you really have to think about your digital communication. So let's roll to the next slide, and I'm going to show you now. This is a really busy chart that no marketer should ever show, but I really wanted to share the 6 areas for 2021 that everybody really needs to look at. So understanding for your top 4 or 5 competitors, and for you, how do you rank in your web traffic? What is the sum and the source of your traffic? What are the duration of your websites? Is your bounce rate less than 40%? How many pages are you getting visited? How many pages are your top 4 or 5 competitors getting? And then you're able to drive these key insights. Who's succeeding? What are they doing? How strong is your brand? Is your content strategy working? And then really figure out, okay, what are the recommendations and the changes that you can make in order to deliver a more effective growth strategy for the business. And the same is true in SEO. If you don't keep your SEO agencies on top of things, raise your hand if you ever feel like they get a little sloppy. Yeah, so we need to be looking at, what is the website structure? How many backlinks, pages? And when you can say to them, look, our competitors have all this and we have this. Are you kidding me? What are you guys doing? So it's a great way to start holding your providers accountable. Digital advertising, how do you figure out where you need to spend? How should you justify spending more? So really looking at what are my competitors spending, what are they getting? And is that something maybe I want to take from the competitive strategy? Social media, you can really understand on all of your competitors, where are they getting their social media traffic? If you have your largest competitor and they're getting a ton of traffic from Facebook, and then you look on Facebook and you see their advertising, maybe that's an option for you as well. So it allows you to look at what's working for you and your competitors. We talked about web structure and web content. On the front of your website, I would do this test and with a stranger. Can someone tell you what your company does in 10 seconds? Are there 3 or 4 ways that there are call to action on the top half of the page? I mean, it's really time to have fresh eyes and look at your website and say, am I conveying the value proposition and the customer? Is it a we orientation versus a you orientation? Lots of people have really taken time to build sites, but they're just online information brochures, and they're not supporting the buyer as they should go through their website. And then finally, the last sort of thing I want to challenge everyone to go back and visit for 2020 on the next slide is, what is the opportunity to really partner, because most of you were all from B2B, to really partner with the sales organization and figure out, how do we get aligned? Because in the organizations I work with, this is really a rough spot. I regularly see 5 to 15% opportunity if you can just get these 2 organizations on the same page. And when I talk about, how do we get on the same page? Let's get agreement on the funnel metrics. Let's get agreement on what is an MQL in black and white, not gray. There's no gray. You can get gray further down the funnel, but black and white. What's the job title? What's the industry code? And when I work with clients, I make them list out between the sales leader and the marketing leader. What is every single job title that Mr. Salesperson you would be excited to have a follow-up meeting with? And if we don't give you that title, you don't get that lead. We'll go back, figure out how to nurture it. The company revenue size. If you don't get that agreement, salespeople will chase anything. And when they chase anything, they're wasting your time, because that's your channel to revenue. And then I think with today's bots, using things like Drift and botco.ai, and Kelly's probably an expert in all these bots and artificial intelligence. They're great opportunities to deliver immediate engagement and identify a potential problem. Hey, thanks for coming to the website today. Generally, people come to us for 1 of 3 reasons. What brought you here today? Do you want more of these, or more of these? They tell you. Now you have some level of qualification. Oh, what's your company size? Boom, boom, boom. So I think getting those service level agreements and the alignment all the way from, we're going to measure this from a marketing perspective, right down through the funnel to what's on sales. And so to summarize, it starts with the mindset. Get your insights. This is an opportune time to do some win-loss analysis. And win-loss analysis should never be done by your own company. We just hired a firm to do our win-loss analysis, and I just got back the first interview today, and boy, we got a big aha. I thought we had done a really good job. They signed with us. They're very happy with the engagement. And he says, it really would have been better if I would have had a better understanding of actually what I'm going to get. And I would have had some example. Wow, that's so easy to fix. And how many businesses have we lost because we didn't really do that? So if you do, 10 win-loss opportunities between now and the end of the year that get you that information on how to refine your messaging, will help you understand your buyer's journey, assess your website, figure out what your competitors are up to. And then once you have sort of all that in the hopper, align sales and marketing. And then, you can take your strategy and align your budget going forward. So there you have it. My thoughts for building a plan to 2021.